Today we find ourselves at Kanuga in North Carolina near Hendersonville in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I've got my colors out on this palette now. This is the Alvin palette, and it's got a rubber seal on it. You'll see that. We'll talk about that later. I got French ultramarine out here. I got in 2 spots on here because I use French ultramarine a lot in my painting. So I got those 2 spots there, and then I've got sky blue here. Sky blue is what I call a real clean cerulean blue. Cerulean blue almost looks dirty in comparison to the sky blue. I really like that. I use it a lot. This is Getz gray, also known as Davies gray. It's a very neutral gray. It's not like Payne's gray. Payne's gray is a cold blue gray, and Payne's gray overtakes the other colors if you mix them together. But with Getz gray or Davies gray, it subdues the color so it's not as bright as the color comes out of the tube, but you'll still have a red. If you mix it with red, you'll have green, etc., etc. It does not change the color. It knocks down the intensity of the color. And so you can control that very nicely without trying to have to mix your grays. This is cobalt blue in the middle here, and I used to use it an awful lot. I don't use it nearly as much as I used to. And this is French gray, which I just recently added to my palette. It's a neutral gray. Here's olive green. I use that frequently with earthen green, which is right in the first spot right here. And then mint julep, and then olive green. This is Skips green here. I used to use spring green, but spring green has some staining green in it. And so I use Skips green because it's the same color, but it does not stain the paper. The next is sour lemon, very clean color, and it'll warm up a cool scene very quickly. The next color is green gold, and that's a new color that I've added to the palette. It's a very nice color. And over here we have quinacridone gold, which I really like. That's the harvest wheat. And this is copper kettle, but better known as quinacridone burnt orange. And then the last one here is burnt sienna, and that's new in my palette. I used to have it on the palette years ago, but that's also new in the palette at this time. Then we'll start up here at the top with cadmium orange. It's the only orange that I have on the palette, but I really like it. It's very flexible. The middle color here is apricot, which I use an awful lot. It's a very nice color. Again, I use it in sunlit scenes to warm up the white paper, just a touch. And you use just a very thin wash of that, and it works very nicely. And then titanium white, which I use because I think on occasions I have to have some white mixed in with the colors to give it a little bit of that look of hazy look of distance. And then down here we have alizarin crimson, which is the deep red. I have cadmium red on my palette also, but I don't have it out. Cad red would go right here. And then over here is cobalt violet, which is also new on my palette. Down below here I have passionate purple here, and I have permanent magenta over here. Now permanent magenta I use a lot of. So that's the palette that I have. The brushes that I use are, these are Joe's Travel, that's the travel brushes. These are American Journey's Golden Fleece brushes, which I dare you to wear these brushes out. They're like iron. They don't wear out, and they have nice flexibility to them. I have the 1/2 inch, number 8, number 4, and a rigger in this set. And then I also have a Winsor Newton number 10 sable that is an older brush that I've had for a long time, and I use that on occasions. Most of my painting is done with the 1/2 inch flat or the number 10 sable, all the way through. And then I only use smaller brushes when I absolutely have to. I like to paint with big brushes. I even have a 1 inch Golden Fleece brush in my bag that I have just to back up. If I want to lay in some very large washes, I can do that with that color. But this is a new palette for me. I like the fact that it's got the rubber sealer around it, and it's very compact, and it's got nice mixing areas in it. As you see, it's got a tray to mix in, it's got the lid to mix in, but I ordinarily do not mix my colors on the palette. I like to mix the colors on the paper by laying down thin washes over a dry wash area. And that way you get fresher colors on the painting and you have less chance of getting mud. When you start mixing colors on the palette, that's first step and second step to going to mud. And if you get a third color mixed in there, you got problems. And everyone says, where did the mud come from? Well, you could look in your water container and see where the mud is happening, because in the water container you're going to have this dull mud color. So I like to mix everything I can on the paper, not on the palette, and let the first washes dry before you lay down another wash, and do it with 1 or 2 strokes. That's all. Don't kill it with strokes, because again you'll start physically mixing the colors on the paper, and you don't want to do that.